and welcome to the left wing. Well, we are here in our usual spot near the Ireland training for the last time, lads. Our last day doing it.
There's a sadness in the air.
There is a sadness.
Sadness in your eyes, Cian.
Yeah, I'm genuinely sad to be leaving tour. We arrived up to training there, or not to training, but their training venue just ahead of the press conference.
And they're shipping out.
It's some operation, isn't it?
Two big trucks.
Massive trucks.
Packing up all their gear.
I saw the oats that they'd brought from home. I mean, we never get to see this side of the operation that's involved in moving a team around the place. It's incredible. But yeah, we were talking to a few members of the backroom team there as well, and there definitely is a sadness to be leaving tour, but I suppose it's on to the next stage, isn't it? Yeah,
and I suppose the big news line out of today's press conference is about Robbie Henshaw. You haven't just asked Paul O'Connell today.
Yeah, it's a kind of nuts and bolts question that you always ask. It's remiss of you not to ask. Did everyone train? And he kind of paused, Paul O'Connell, and then he said, well, actually, he kind of said, yeah, everyone trained, and he said, well, actually, Robbie Henshaw has a niggle, and he's getting further investigation on that, and we'll have more news for you tomorrow. I think that's pretty much what he said. Yeah. And to me, that's my antenna will be up very high on that one. That doesn't sound good to me at all.
It didn't sound good, no.
Very downbeat. Now, we haven't got anything further than that. It does sound like there'll be an update, probably from Andy Farrell tomorrow. They won't make any. They don't. They've got 32 fit players. We, as far as we understand, there was some doubt about James Ryan earlier in the week, but we expect him to be available. But they're in no rush to rule anyone out or call anyone up. But certainly he won't be playing in Scotland this weekend, I think it's safe to say. Which opens up the 23 jersey, and it's very unfortunate. And if it is more serious than that, and if it does rule out Robbie Henshaw out of the rest of the World Cup, I know he's not starting games, but all you have to do is look at the tape of the last game and his 2 cameos off the bench. He is a vital member of this squad. He's a vital member of this team. He is. It was an incredible luxury having him in that number 23 jersey. He would start for nearly every team here. And while Stuart McCluskey's an excellent player, may come onto the bench, maybe it'd be Keith Earls, maybe it'd be Jimmy O'Brien for that versatility. I think Henshaw is very, very hard to replace. Now you do have Bundyaki starting and Gary Ringo's outside of him, but it just removes a layer of that depth that stands to you, and it will be a major blow, especially if it's a soft tissue injury incurred in training. Yeah,
we'll get further confirmation. But I mean, Robbie was out talking to us last week. I mean, hoping to get back into the starting team again. Your heart will go out to him if it is something serious, Cian.
Yeah, and I would agree with Rod. Reading between the lines, it doesn't sound good. Obviously, we'll wait for the official line. But Robbie Henshaw has had hamstring injuries in the past as well. So I mean, it doesn't bode well. He just looked like he was getting right back to, I suppose, where he wanted to be. He's last season was ruined by injury as well, and he probably struggled when he came back to hit the heights that we all know he's capable of. And obviously in that time Bundyaki has made the 12 jersey his own. So yeah, just really unfortunate. We've spent a lot of time over the last kind of couple of weeks saying how lucky Ireland have been with injuries, and again, I know that's a lot if it is down to the work that the SSC staff did in pre-season, but we were talking to Kieran Ruddock about this on Sunday, and he's obviously an assistant to that, and he said there is a massive element of luck to it. So I mean, picking up an injury in training, it happens. There's nothing you can do about it. Look, hopefully it won't be as bad as we fear. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do on the bench. I mean, when you look back through Andy Farrell's 23s, he generally likes to have a centre on the bench. So if you're to go that line, I think you'd imagine that Stuart McCluskey would be a fairly kind of straightforward replacement, but what Henshaw gives you is the ability to play 12 and 13 fullback at a bit of a push, whereas McCluskey is obviously an out-and-out 12. So he would be, imagine, gunning to get a chance.
I do wonder about the line they're giving us, where nothing's really changed about maybe they should change something. They've been saying nothing's. We haven't done anything different about the line out for the last 7 or 8 weeks, and the line out keeps being a major issue. So maybe it's time to panic.
It's probably the party line though. Really, the idea that Paul O'Connell hasn't got the line out leaders and the hookers locked in a dark room, I would say. Look, we had Dan Cian yesterday, and he kind of said it too.
That's what I mean.
I'd be surprised though if
they have to. It's such a major issue, and Scotland will try and come after them there. They will go after Scotland, and I think World Rugby and Opta put out a stat yesterday. Their defensive line out's one of the best in the tournament. It's been a real success. So it's not all bad in that front, but they didn't really lay a glove on the South Africans. But the South Africans really went after them. I thought the way he answered the question about how good South Africa were, and obviously they cheated by getting kits off into one of the lineouts, but that's smart. He would admire that as well as being annoyed by it, I think. Scotland are not the same force, but the one time Scotland did beat Ireland in the last It was 9 games ago, isn't it? In the 2017, the day the bus was late. It wasn't just the bus that beat Ireland that day. Their line-out did a big job on them as well, and that was an area of weakness for Ireland that day, and that's something that they just have to be on it at every turn. We all know that this is a really dangerous game for Ireland. Like, I think we all expect them to win. I think I speak for everyone in that, but it's a dangerous game, and you got to be right in every area. And line-out's so important to the way they play, the way they score. It's key. So, like, yeah, hopefully they're doing the same thing. If that's what they're doing is going to fix it, they have to fix it though. They're not going to win a World Cup if they don't fix it.
Yeah, not ideal for James Ryan obviously to get that wrist or hand injury against South Africa. Now they've said he's been training fully the last couple of days, but he certainly missed training last week, and he's obviously Ireland's main line-out caller. I thought Ian Henderson was outstanding when he came on.
I wonder if Henderson might be involved, get a start.
Yeah.
Well, if Ryan hasn't trained fully this week, I wonder, will they decide to give Henderson, having been really good off the bench and being a leader in the end game, and keep, if Ryan is fit enough, put him on. Like, it's a bit of a muchness, but I think Henderson playing well.
Yeah, I totally get your logic. I think if Ryan is fit, I would be very surprised if he doesn't start, like, given that how integral he is to the team. Also what Henderson brought off the bench. But if we're to take it that Dan Sheehan is going to start, then Dan Sheehan and Ian Henderson I thought linked up really well in that South Africa game, so there could be an argument to it, but I would still expect James Ryan to be in there. He's so important to Ireland.
So 2 changes in the pack, is that what we're...
Yeah, I wouldn't expect. I mean, there is a debate over Murray or Gibson Park, but I'd expect them to stick with Gibson Park at this stage. I'd argue that Murray should start, but it's a tight call either way. And I don't see. I think there was a bit of a case to be made for Henshaw, but obviously he's not fit. So, I mean, why would you take Mundiaki out of the team? He's in such great form, and the back three is the back three. You're not dropping Johnny Sexton anytime soon. So, yeah, it is the last 16 game. It's the first of the knockout games. They've had 2 weeks off. There's no need to rotate. I don't see a need apart from getting Cian into the team. And just if Ryan hasn't been able to train fully, and they've been running this line out and trying to fix the line out with Henderson calling it, and he's a very good caller, like Ian Henderson, he's a very experienced player. There's an argument there, but I think apart from that, I don't see much. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I totally agree. Like I said, I think if James Ryan is fit, that he will start ahead of Ian Henderson. I totally get the logic, but I would Dan Sheehan being the only change, and I would absolutely 100% have Jack Conan on the bench, probably at the expense of Ryan Baird, which is a little bit unfortunate on him. Don't think he's done anything wrong, but I've made this point earlier that there has to be an eagerness to get Jack Conan up to speed before a potential quarter final. So I would fully expect him to be involved,
unless the Celtic conspiracy is true.
Yes,
and they're going to run
which of course
the
it isn't.
The C team and engineer a result with Scotland that will put South Africa in a World Cup. We were watching today. There was no sign of any Scottish emissaries at training, so we think it's probably going to be pretty strong.
Well, now that Rassie Rasmus is following both the RFU and
Rassie, incredible stuff.
So
Honestly, incredible stuff.
It has been. So you were kind of debating this as well this morning in terms of what he said and who's best placed.
We argued it, and I think once Ireland win, they're in a great position. But right now, South Africa have 3 games to win a World Cup. Look, obviously, there's not going to be a scenario where South Africa are knocked out by Ireland and Scotland. It would just be impossible almost, and it would be deeply suspicious as well. Ireland throwing an intercept pass in the last minute to get the result they need. But I just think, having a week off in the Côte d'Azur before you kick into gear for a quarter final against France next week, a France team who have a major doubt over their best player and Julian Marchand as well. That's a pretty good position to be in. I think the break week has fallen well for them, albeit they would have preferred to beat Ireland. I mean, the whole thing where people are saying that that's just almost a game by Erasmus. I don't buy that one bit.
What do you reckon?
Not at all. Like, I mean, they wanted to beat Ireland. You could see by the way they were crestfallen at the end.
But there was some absolute nonsense coming out after that game. Can't remember who it was, but they said that they didn't want to beat Ireland because they wanted to play France. They wanted to avoid the All Blacks. I mean, just absolute rubbish. But I see Rassie Rasmussen now only following 2 accounts, the IRFU's account and the Scottish Rugby
He's
Unit.
trolling off the ball as well. He's he's obviously got a lot of time in his hands out there. He needs to just get out into the sunbeds and kind of enjoy the fact that he's
gotta love it though.
Nice,
he's just great.
Pure
the value they've given us. I just thought it was so shocked at Nienaber. Like the reason this conspiracy thing has gone legs, and I felt I had to ask about it yesterday, was because Jacques Nienaber took it at face value. He answered the question. He didn't go, "I've a lot of respect for Ireland and Scotland, and I don't believe they'd ever do that." He said that would be match fixing, and it would be very disappointing if it happened, and we were keep rugby clean teachers. I was shocked that he took it at face value. Like, the future Leinster coach is even entertaining the notion that Ireland and Scotland will come to range. I thought it was bizarre, but it's given us so much to talk about this week between himself and Razzie. Like, even though they're not playing this week, they're still. I know you were saying that Ireland are in their heads. I think they're in our heads a little bit as well.
No, I think they are. I mean, I was writing about this in our debate piece today. I mean, I know the Cranberries, like Zombie has become the anthem, but like in the last few weeks, I think the chorus in your head has become more kind of relevant, because Ireland are in South Africa's head. I think they're in New Zealand's head when you think of Ian Foster's comments that he came out with, already trying to sow the seeds ahead of a potential quarter-final clash. So has this ever happened in Irish rugby where you have all the big boys are
that's the price of being number one?
Well, that's it. I mean, and it comes with a price as well. But I just don't think Andy Farrell or this set of coaches read anything into that at all. Maybe in a previous era, you know, it might have gotten under their skin, but I think it's water off a duck's back for Andy Farrell, and that's reflective in the players as well. We were talking about this earlier, Sinead, on the video that we did, that Dan Sheehan was saying, you know, there's a danger that you can overhype games, and I feel like, you know, Dan Sheehan is like the kind of the personification of the younger guys who don't have the emotional baggage from previous World Cups. They're just used to winning. It's not like they're taking like Scotland lightly, but they're just like, you know, it's another game kind of mentality, and they don't really get overawed by it. And I think that comes from Farrell as well. Yeah,
I think so. I think Farrell sets a very good tone, and like he just doesn't. You can ask him about other coaches' comments. He doesn't really ever like get involved. He just doesn't. It's water off duck's back, as you say. Doesn't bite at all. It's not something like he's interesting in other ways, but he doesn't get involved in the mind game stuff. I think he kind of just sees it as superfluous nonsense, really, you know, and you know, I'm sure he'll be asked, like, you know, even the 7-1 thing before the Box game, he just didn't want to talk about it. He wanted to talk about his own team and setting a tone for his own team.
But he answered that well though at the time by saying, you know, he welcomed it, you know, and he liked the idea.
But that's
of
it, like he wasn't getting ruffled by it at all, you know. And the point you make about Cian is interesting, because like there's a whole generation of Irish rugby players who've grown up their whole lives watching Ireland win. Now, not at World Cups, but they've never, like, Dan Sheehan's never been involved in a failing Irish team. And before the last World Cup quarter-final, Steve Hansen, before and after, he talked a lot about experience. And he said that, you know, before the game, they were asked a lot about how experienced Ireland were. And then after, he said, well, a lot of that experience was losing experience. So Johnny Sexton, Conor Murray, these guys, all of their World Cup quarter-final experience is heartache. And he said, you know, that's not necessarily a good thing. You know, people say experience is a good thing, but if you've only experienced bad experiences in these big games, that can come back to bite you. That can lead to anxiety. Whereas Doris, Keller, Sheehan, these, you know, Keenan, this new generation aren't touched by that. And I do think that the older players seem to have reached a level of maturity now and confidence and steely determination
they bounce
that it maybe
them,
isn't going to be
I think like the likes of Johnny Sexton and, you know, Peter O'Mahony,
it's like a good mix.
Exactly.
You know,
you have to have those guys who we're talking about, your Keith Earls and your Conor Murrays. I mean, you have to have experience, but I think they really kind of bounce well off the younger guys, and maybe they're thinking maybe we shouldn't have this emotional baggage if these young guys don't. So it's a good mix.
Yeah, and actually O'Connell spoke well today about that emotional and trying to handle it and not, you know, delving into that as much as previous teams would have done in the past.
Yeah, and like the tests are to come, because they've got 3 pool. I actually look at it. They did 3 pool games, and this is the first knockout game. And Ireland have never won a knockout game in a World Cup. They didn't even win a preliminary quarter final when they had one in 1999. They, you know, this is a different team, but that historical baggage is there, and it will be referenced that, you know, if they get through this game next week, they'll be asked about the quarterfinal curse. And until they win a quarterfinal against probably New Zealand, maybe France, maybe Italy, they will be asked about it forever. Well, you know, just keeping on. You know, I don't want to. You know,
the Italian listeners, we don't
very loyal followership on YouTube in Italy. But no, they I think that will be a big talking point next week. But it actually, I think, is a factor this week, because there is pressure on their shoulders. It's been seen as a bit of a free hit for Scotland. No one expects Scotland to get the result they need. And Ireland just have to go out there and perform in the way they did in New Zealand, in the way they did during the Grand Slam. You know, they have shown us that they can do it, but now the pressure is different, and we don't know what the mix of the crowd is going to be like in Stade de France on Saturday. Will be more Scots? You know, will be, you know, have people book their quarter final rather than this game? You know, it's going to be a different dynamic, and it's not the same as the Springbok game. It's about backing it up, but they've become quite good at doing that.
Yeah, no, they certainly have. Well, I also caught up with former Scotland and Connacht outhalf Dan Parks in his home in Australia about the game this weekend, and also about the situation in Australian rugby.
It's been unreal. Like in Scotland here, the coverage of all the games has been really well received, and Stan Sport have been a great provider. So we're able to get all the games, the shortened versions or the long versions. But yeah, no, it's obviously been lots of quality, and to watch Ireland beat South Africa, I thought was immense. You know, obviously, I think we all know if South Africa probably kicked a few more goals, it might have been a different story. But ultimately, Ireland continued that amazing run. I think it's 16 straight wins now. So that's been pretty special. And then Scotland, in their first game, they obviously struggled early doors against South Africa. But, they just couldn't get into any flow and attack. And that was, I'm sure, for most Scottish supporters, it was really frustrating to see them not be able to get that flow. But since then, they've certainly turned things around in that game against Romania. Last weekend was just so good to watch. The way they really stretched Romania really well. And, if they can do anything like that against Ireland, then it'll cause some headaches for Ireland. But I think we all know Ireland are a very, very quality outfit. So it's going to be a lot tougher. But, here's hoping Scotland, can make it a real World Cup game, because, it's all on the line. I think from what I'm seeing, a lot of the commentary is about Ireland already going through to the finals. And I think Scotland, if anything, they've been the underdog, or certainly keeping a low profile. And I'm sure that Ireland and Andy Farrell, the coach, he certainly won't be taking them for granted. That's for sure.
Yeah, do you think all that talk from outside the Ireland camp, do you think that will rile up the Scotland players?
No, as I said, I don't. Yeah, I'm not really buying into it much. I don't think Gregor Townsend is either. I think he even made a comment the other day that he's certain that Ireland and their staff, and they're certainly taking it as if it's not a given, and that's the reality. Again, I could be incorrect here, but if Scotland win by more than 8 and deny Ireland a bonus point, is that right? They go through. Yeah, so that's a very achievable opportunity. So yeah.
And do you find if Scotland have to, really go for it like that, that could bring out the best of them? Or do you think they'll have to play a tighter game? What way do they need to approach it this weekend, do you think?
Oh, I think they can't go against what works for them. As I said, again, unfortunately against South Africa, the brand they were trying to play, it didn't work. If anything, I think they probably tried to play a little bit too much through 10 on that occasion. Whereas we saw on the weekend, they were more hitting their pods and going out the back of their pods. I think that's probably going to be more suitable. And if they can get some flow, the flow's the key. So if some of those big fellas can get some momentum, and then the likes of Finn and the centre combinations can start playing off that, they're going to be dangerous. Like we've seen what, the likes of Darcy Graham on the wing, I don't know who the team is, but Kyle Stain and obviously Duan, if they can get their fair share of ball, then Scotland can score points. And as we just discussed, they only got to win by more than 8. And, that's very achievable, but it's not going to be easy, but it certainly is an achievable goal.
Yeah, do you think this game will suit Finn Russell a bit more than what happened against South Africa?
Well, as I said, I think it's just going to depend on how they play it. Clearly the way the South Africans defend, in particular, that swarming, he just had no time whatsoever. And all his options were taken from the outside. And they did well, South Africa. They did extremely well. But as Ireland tend to do, they found a way to get around that. And, they managed to score points, which is the key, clearly, in any game of rugby, and in particular against South Africa, because teams have really struggled to score against them. But Ireland managed to find a way, and they just managed to score enough to win. So, I think it bodes well for an exciting game. I think Ireland have certainly had the wood over Scotland in recent times. And I think that's the case with Ireland over most nations. As we said, they won 16 straight, so they're certainly in a rich vein of form. And I just think it's an amazing pool, that one, because it's really tight, and I'm sure there's been plenty of commentary about it. And you look at some of the other pools, and you think some of those teams have got away a little bit lighter than what certainly Pool B has been. But if you get through the pool, then you take a lot of confidence going through into the quarters and the semis.
Yeah, Ireland certainly seem to have been a bit of a bogey team for Scotland. Scotland haven't beaten them since 2017, obviously in Murrayfield. Will that count for much, or, will that come into play at all psychologically? Because Ireland do seem to have that psychological edge over Scotland. And perhaps we expected more from Scotland in the second half in Murrayfield in the Six Nations earlier this year, because they were right in that game. Yeah,
and I think, if I remember correctly, there was some really crucial moments in that second half in particular, which obviously didn't go in Scotland's favour. But I don't think it'll count for much. I think at the end of the day, Ireland would have an amazing amount of self-belief within that group, and great team unity, and they'll trust what they do, trust their processes, and I'm sure that's the conversations that have been going through the group all throughout the week and throughout the tournament. At the end of the day, they've beaten South Africa, and I think certainly over here, a lot of people have been saying how South Africa should win this World Cup, and then all of a sudden Ireland come out and beat them. And I think it just goes to show the quality of, as I said, the structures and the systems that are in place with Ireland. They're in a really strong position, but that's the amazing part of rugby, right? Like, the reality is, if things go Scotland's way and they get the bounce of the ball and they get a few calls go their way, and we've also seen how the red card rules can apply, and if things go their way in that regard, who's to say Scotland can't do it? It would be amazing, and it would be an incredible achievement. And that's why I was saying it's such a shame that the 1, 2, and 5 fifth-ranked team are all in that same pool, because it's made it difficult, and it's going to be a shame that one of them will drop out.
Yeah. Before I get your prediction, what has been the feeling like in Australia? Obviously, mathematically, they still have a chance of getting into the quarterfinals, but realistically, that's unlikely to happen. Fiji just need a point to get through. What is the feeling back in Australia about the way this World Cup has gone?
Oh, it's probably the same as what I'm sure it has been over in France and really all over the world. I know that certainly Eddie's copped a lot of flack. So it's no different here. It's a bit of a dire state, I guess, for the game of rugby, because Australia not qualifying, and the reality is they shouldn't. Fiji deserve to go through, and I'm sure they'll get what's required for them to go through. And at the end of the day, they deserve it. Australia have lost 2 of their 4 games. They lost comfortably to Wales, which I think to a lot of people was a big upset. I didn't really see it as an upset, because from my understanding and from what I know about Wales, once they get on a roll and they get confidence, they're a very, very tough team to play against. And I played against them for years, so I can understand that completely. And they've obviously got on a bit of a roll early in the tournament. And the Fiji game against Australia, well, that was right up in the air. And to Fiji's credit, they were amazing to get that result. So I think at the end of the day, Fiji have beaten England recently, so then they're a tough team to beat. And as I said, Wales, if you look at the experience they got in that squad, like, those players have delivered, and I think the captain's been amazing. Certainly unearthed the real talent there, and Warren Gatland has managed to galvanise that group, and so I think it's good for world rugby, not so good for Australian rugby, because it's a bit of a it's certainly a black day when I think when it comes to reality that they haven't qualified for a World Cup. But these things happen, these things work in cycles, and there's a lot of young players within that group. There's obviously been a lot of talk, probably negatively, around the selection of some of Eddie's big calls, in particular around Hooper, Foley, or Cooper being left out. There's some big decisions there, and there's a lot of experience that was left back here in Australia. And at the end of the day, the guys that have been there, they've done their best, but clearly it hasn't been good enough. And sometimes experience counts for something. And I think, if any country proved that, it's Wales.
And so finally, before we leave you go, who's winning this again, Scotland or Ireland?
Well, again, I would love to say Scotland. I really would. And I think they're capable of doing it. I firmly believe they are, because I know what that team can do, and I know what certain individuals can do, and a collective as a team. But I think you'd be mad to say that Ireland can't win or shouldn't win. And at the end of the day, that they realise they've probably got that buffer in order to get through. So it's going to be very hard for Scotland. But I would think Ireland would win. But if Scotland can, as I said, get some of their natural game going, then they're in it, right up to the next. And I just hope it's going to be an exciting game. I really do, because some of the games at this World Cup have been really exciting, and I'm hopeful this one will be a classic, because it should be. As I said, there's 3 teams in this pool are in the top 5, and it's a shame that one of them's going to miss out. But I'm looking forward to watching it, as I'm sure the rest of the world are.
Okay, lads, that's it from us. I'm nearly packed. What way are you?
About halfway there.
Halfway?
Yeah, I haven't got loaded up the car. Everyone else getting the train.
you're
I'm
driving.
driving up to Paris. I'm really looking forward to tackling the Arctic Triumph roundabout.
Good luck with that. I got a taxi home around it last weekend after the match, and it was chaos. At about 2:30 in the morning, it may as well have been midday. It was
It's all, every
carnage.
man for itself.
Well, I didn't really enjoy it because our French taxi driver was was talking to one of our French-speaking colleagues in the front seat, and as he entered the roundabout, he just turned and was like actively talking to him, not looking at the road. Like, I thought that was the end
Wrecks
for me.
my head when people turn around while they're driving.
Especially when you're going on to like one of the most dangerous roundabouts ever. But I mean, my big thing about Paris is this bed bugs.
Yes. Oh, lads, the thoughts of it.
I know.
You're even talking about it.
So I'm going back to the same hotel that I was in for this Springboks game. Really nice hotel. But I mean, the first thing I do when I'm getting there is having a good look. Yeah, well, having a good look. I mean, but the worst thing is you can't always see them. So yeah, that kind of adds to the sadness, I think, of leaving tour, doesn't it? That we're heading into like a bed bug.
Well, forecast is good for the weekend. That's the good news. And look,
does that keep them away?
No, it just makes it easier to be outside. Apparently, don't put your suitcase. Someone gave me a tip yesterday on Twitter. It's like, don't put your suitcase in your bed, because that's how you bring it home with you. So anyone going to Paris this weekend,
your window
maybe don't get into your bed.
I did, yeah.
You left
I got
your window
destroyed
open.
by a mosquito. Yeah.
But
I had the last laugh, though. Let's just say that.
Oh yeah,
I had the last laugh.
I heard about that. Anyway,
we'll have the animal cruelty people on.
I'm saying nothing.
Well, that is it from us on tour. We are going to be back again with another podcast from the Ireland Team Hotel out in the middle of nowhere, Rory. Sure it is.
It's about an hour north. It's on a golf course an hour north of Paris, and it's not in Paris at all. Like you look at the Google Maps and it's just green all around it. So I'm sure it's very nice, but not very handy.
Not very handy. So we will have a podcast after the team announcement from there tomorrow.